Well, tonight's breaking Jeffrey Epstein news picks up where last night's breaking Jeffrey Epstein news left off. Congressman Robert Garcia, the top-ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, joined us last night after his committee conducted a 4-hour closed-door deposition of the worst attorney general Donald Trump got confirmed by the Senate in his first term as president, William Barr. The Republican chairman of the Oversight Committee, James Comer, suggested last night that William Barr testified that Donald Trump did nothing wrong with Jeffrey Epstein. Congressman Garcia is now insisting, quote, yesterday during his deposition with the committee, Attorney General Barr could not clear Donald Trump of wrongdoing. Chairman Comer should release the full, unedited transcript of his interview for the public. Congressman Garcia will lead off our discussion again tonight. Donald Trump has a lot to hide from these days, and more than one way of doing it. European leaders rushed to Washington yesterday to conduct an intervention in the White House to prevent Donald Trump from doing something crazy with Vladimir Putin. And the intervention worked, at least for a day, at least for now. The White House released this photograph of the intervention showing how Donald Trump chose to hide his newest problem during the intervention: his ankles. After photographers have repeatedly captured Donald Trump's swollen ankles over the last month, the White House released a statement saying that the swollen 79-year-old ankles were a symptom of chronic venous insufficiency. That's one of the ways a lifetime of McDonald's junk food catches up with you. One of the places those Big Macs are going to show up is in the ankles hanging over the edge of your shoes. We can only wonder if the White House would have ever admitted that Donald Trump's blood circulation is insufficient if not for the telephoto lenses of White House photographers zooming in on the ankles Donald Trump now wants no one to see. On Friday in Alaska, Vladimir Putin's 72-year-old ankles showed none of the mileage of Donald Trump's ankles. And yesterday, Donald Trump made sure no one was going to be able to compare his ankles to a French president's ankles or a German chancellor's or a British prime minister's. And so the Resolute desk became the perfect place to hide those ankles. Presidents actually rarely sit at the Oval Office desk like that during meetings in the Oval Office with people from outside the White House staff. The president usually sits in one of those chairs in front of the fireplace. That's where the president always sat in every Oval Office meeting I was in when I worked in the Senate. But Donald Trump now has an extra incentive to stay behind the desk because the Resolute desk will help him hide at least one of his problems. But that is the only problem the desk can help Donald Trump hide. While the European intervention prevented Donald Trump from doing anything crazy with Vladimir Putin, the intervention could not prevent Donald Trump from saying anything crazy. Here's what Donald Trump told his worshipful Fox propaganda hosts this morning about what for him was that magical moment in Alaska that Donald Trump now insists was not such a terrible thing.
I mean, you saw that when he got off his plane, I got off my plane. There's a warmth there that you can't, there's a decent feeling. And it's a good thing, not a bad thing. People would say, oh, that's such a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing.
Not a terrible thing. No, Donald, it's not a terrible thing. When you see a man get off his plane and you're getting off your plane and you feel a warmth for that man, that's not a terrible thing, depending on who the man is. When your Treasury Secretary gets off his plane and he sees his husband, he surely has feelings like the warmth that you described. But your Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent's husband, is not a murderous dictator. Scott Bessent's husband has never murdered anyone and has never murdered children. Vladimir Putin has done that. And that, Donald, is why people say it's such a terrible thing that you feel warmth for that murderous dictator when you see him. Quote, When he got off his plane, I got off my plane. There's a warmth that you can't, there's a decent feeling. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. People would say, oh, that's such a terrible thing. Not a terrible thing. Yes, it's a terrible thing. Is that what you felt when you saw Jeffrey Epstein getting off his plane in Palm Beach? He got off his plane, I got off my plane. There's a warmth that you can't, there's this, it's a decent feeling. Is that what you felt, Donald, when you saw Jeffrey Epstein? And speaking of crazy, Donald Trump told his Fox worshipful questioners this morning this about Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine.
This is the biggest bad situation since World War II. There's been nothing even close.
Oh, yes, there has, Donald. The war you avoided back when your ankles were slim and a local doctor wrote a note to your draft board saying that you had bone spurs in your feet that then spent the rest of their lives playing golf. The Vietnam War was much bigger and much worse situation than the war in Ukraine, and it went on much longer, especially for the American soldiers who went to Vietnam in your place. 58,000 of them have their names on a wall near where you live now because they never came home from Vietnam, and no amount of lying the way you do and exaggerating the military death tolls in Ukraine will ever bring those death tolls up to the level of the Vietnam War, which also included the deaths of as many as 2 million civilians in that war. And the Vietnam military, the North Vietnamese military, the Viet Cong fighters, between 200,000, 250,000 of them, including South Vietnamese soldiers. Donald Trump did say one thing about Vladimir Putin today that wasn't crazy, but it is something that everyone else has already been saying about Vladimir Putin, and Donald Trump today became the last one to realize this when Donald Trump told his Fox Morning friends, quote, "It's possible that he doesn't want to make a deal." That's right, Donald. That's possible. That's why everyone thought you were crazy yesterday when you were overheard on a hot mic telling the president of France that Vladimir Putin would make a deal for you, just to do you a favor.
I think he wants to make a deal. I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand? As crazy as it sounds.
4, 3. Yeah, it sounds crazy. The European intervention stopped Donald Trump from doing anything crazy with Vladimir Putin, but nothing can stop Donald Trump from saying ignorant things, things Donald Trump knows nothing about. Something Donald Trump does know about is how many times his name appears in the Epstein files. His attorney general and deputy attorney general, who used to be his criminal defense lawyers, rushed to the Oval Office after they put thousands of FBI agents to work studying the Epstein files to tell Donald Trump exactly how many times his name appears in the Epstein files and in what way his name appears in the Epstein files. The House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed the Epstein files from the Justice Department, demanding that the files be delivered tomorrow. The Justice Department has offered a compromise of beginning to deliver the Epstein files on Friday of this week, 2 days late, and only beginning to deliver them. The top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, who will join us in a moment, says that that is not good enough. And now a Senate committee is pressing its legal right to obtain the Epstein files by law. Federal law says that the two committees, the House Government Operations Committee and the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee, can request information from any executive agency, including the Justice Department, if any 5 members of that committee ask for the information. And today, 7 members of the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee, all Democrats, wrote to the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, directing her, quote, to produce to this committee the full and complete Epstein files as identified by the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Federal law says that the Attorney General is bound by law, by a federal law, which says that an executive agency, quote, shall submit any information requested of it relating to any matter within the jurisdiction of the committee. That applies to the governmental affairs committees only. There is no way around that law as written, no legal way. But that does not mean that the Trump Attorney General will not defy that law, because she knows how many times and in what ways Donald Trump's name appears in the Epstein files. And Donald Trump knows, and they obviously don't want anyone else to know.